Hello, everyone. So we just got finished up recording and doing an interview with Chris Hutchison. He's a good friend of mine that I've known a couple years now in the three gun community. All the North Carolina crowd knows him. Very gifted and passionate person. And I think you can really tell how passionate he is. Um, Humble, you know, driven, motivated. So yeah, Frank, what was your impression?
Really enthusiastic about shooting sports, really wanted to be on the podcast, gave us a lot of great answers. I've never met the guy in person, but after talking to him for about an hour or so, I definitely felt like I knew who he was. His personality really comes through in some of these answers. So that was honestly my impression of him after we talked to him.
I think it was more like 2 hours, but like we covered a
Yeah.
lot of stuff that we weren't even planning on covering. It just kind of just kept coming out and rolling out, and like we just cover one topic and it roll right into other things. And it's not like they were rabbit holes or anything, but they were just like more conversation about like our viewpoints, like from talking about what as an ambassador, wanting to be an ambassador to a company, what do they look for, which is much like how it is on the team. I'm not looking just for talent, I'm looking for character. So we just kind of covered a lot of subjects that was it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we got into that because I don't think that's something that's discussed. We talk a lot about how to become more lethal, how to become more fast and more accurate, and we don't necessarily take the time to talk about some of the intangibles that people bring. And it's clear to me after we talked to Chris why he's been chosen to represent all these companies. He's a good guy. He represents the sport well. He represents his brands well. And I think for a lot of new shooters, they look at sponsored or endorsed shooters and all they see is like, hey, why does that guy have it and why do I not? Instead of like turning within and assessing why they might not be a good candidate to be an ambassador for a program or to represent the Marine Corps as a part of the Marine Corps shooting team.
Yeah, so no, we hope you like it. Let us know what you think and enjoy the show.
Yep. Give me a nod when you're ready. Shooters ready. Stand by.
Hello, everyone. This is Matt Gunlock from the 3G IQ podcast. I'm joined here today with Frank Gow, my co-host, and then also Chris Hutchison. Chris Hutchison joined the Army August of 2006 with an option 40 RIP contract, did RIP early of 2007, and then attended the Special Operation Combat Medic course at Fort Bragg. And then he was assigned to 175th Ranger Battalion from 2008 to 2013. He deployed 6 times during that time, and then he went to selection for a special mission unit, did another year of training all of 2014, then started deploying again for another 5 deployments. After that, he went to JSOC as of 2020, working as part of a free-for-all program and currently in the aviation community. He's an brand ambassador for Christensen Arms, Safariland, and Priority One Holsters. Chris, can you open this up and give us a little background on yourself?
Hey, Matt, Frank, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean that pretty much kind of covered it all in the grand scheme of things, man. As far as the shooting world, I didn't really even know that there was a part of the shooting world until easily late 2016, 2017. So even in the military career, like the shooting and the whole like competition shooting world really didn't exist to me until about that time. So, but yeah, that's kind of my background, man. Joined the Army a little bit late, decided to tear down nuclear reactors for about 5 years, and which is cool, and decided that the whole like labor union thing in the Department of Energy wasn't for me, and wanted to do something that was a little bit more fun. And so I joined the Army at 23 and did a lot of research. Decided that, kind of for me, the Ranger Regiment was where I wanted to go, and wanted to go in with the infantry contract, and went into MEPS, and they were like, "Hey, we don't have an infantry contract." So I was like, "All right, see you later, get lost." And they came to me with a medic contract, and between a good recruiter and a lot of, at the time, I mean, even though it was 2006, like the internet was still decent for being able to like Google stuff. Did some research and realized that like Ranger medics are pretty like outstanding part of the medical community in the special operations world. And so I took that contract and never looked back, man. So
Awesome. So where are you from originally?
Idaho.
Okay.
I grew up in Idaho Falls, which is like right on the Idaho, Montana, Wyoming border. So a lot of hunting, a lot of fishing. And I'm just going to throw it out there early. I am actually in the shooting community. I'm Benny Cooley's nephew. So if you know anything about 3-gun and the kind of legacy, early shooters, Benny Cooley is kind of one of those guys. And I end up being, I'm his nephew, and he's a big part of how I got in the community.
So he kind of got you in the start, but later in the game after you started your career in the Army. How'd that work?
Yeah,
out?
man. So it's kind of funny. So when I graduated RIP, which is the Ranger Indoctrination Program, which is now RASP, the Ranger Assessment Selection Program, I graduated as a medic. You do like a short amount of time where you kind of have to earn. I mean, you're going to go to the Special Operations Combat Medic course, but you kind of have to earn it a little bit. So earned it, and I PCS to Fort Bragg because the course is so long. Originally it was about 7 months. Now it's almost a year. And at the same time I PCS, literally the same week, Benny was up here doing a shooting course with 7th Group. And then he was going to stay and do a civilian like carbine course. And so he knew I was coming up, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to fly you out a rifle. You're going to do this course with me for free." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, even though I grew up in Idaho, like, dude, I barely ever shot, right? Like I had a BB gun, maybe a 22. Like I didn't shoot ever, never shot pistol, especially never shot a 223 or 5.56 platform. And so I do this weekend long course with Benny, and I was like, holy cow, like this is amazing. Like this is so much fun. Right. And I was shooting back in time, he was shooting like this like hodgepodge, like JP Enterprise rifle. And he had like, it was like his backup rifle. And we ended up getting in like 2007, there's a picture of him and I in SWAT magazine. Mm-hmm. And it's like Benny Cooley was student, and like what they don't know is like the student was his nephew. So it's kind of cool. But that was really my first like interaction to shooting more than just like plinking some stuff or shooting an animal, or you know what I mean? Like, yeah. And which was pretty cool.
So I got to ask, so you spent time in Ranger Regiment as well as being in the Special Missions Unit. How have you used the training from those units and the training you've received from 3-gun to train soldiers that you lead now?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I'll say this, Matt, like for the entire time I was in the Ranger Regiment, there was no actual like training pathway for any of the platforms, right? Like there was proficiency as far as like, we're going to go down, we're going to shoot 1,000 rounds out of whatever firearm you're shooting at some sort of target. But there was nothing between movement, shooting, accuracy, like none of it equated. Right.
Right.
And what was crazy about that time is it was kind of like, and I was telling you, it was kind of like death by just like volume of fire. Accuracy was never a thing. I mean, everything we did was like, you put on full body armor, you put on full helmet and everything. And it was like radio drills, which is like super unrealistic in the combat setting. And it was kind of cool to see, you know, when I moved up to Fort Bragg and I started doing a lot more advanced marksmanship, they actually, the one course I was a part of, the Ranger Regiment was a participant because they wanted to come up and they wanted to change their marksmanship program. And the marksmanship program that I was doing it was very, very competitive marksmanship. Now it was a little bit old school. It was a little bit like IPSC, a little bit, you know, some other kind of stuff that was a lot of standing still. I mean, there was some movement and shooting, but it was more competitive, right? And the Ranger Regiment was invited. Well, they have since introduced an entirely new shooting program in their pathway, and they actually teach people how to like be accurate, how to know what the capabilities of their firearms are, you know, how to be more deadly with the firearms they have. And I think a good part of that too was when they switched from the Berettas to the Glocks. We went from like when we would take our pistols out and we would just load up a bunch of mags and we would just shoot at stuff, right? Like we would never like actually like practice shooting a pistol. We would just shoot. Like nobody in the entire at 1st Battalion 175, nobody actually ever knew how to shoot a pistol, right? Like there was nobody that was like, oh, I can actually shoot a pistol. We just went down, we shot thousands of rounds at like paper targets. And I will say when they transitioned to the Glocks, they actually put a lot of emphasis in their pistol marksmanship, and they actually started training it. So it's kind of cool to see over the years how instead of like death by volume, it was like it kind of became like death by accuracy. And it was at death by accuracy by really like training like good shooting fundamentals, good shooting programs, you know, like that kind of was never there before.
What do you think kind of brought all this on? I mean, I'm thinking because like you and I, we have very similar timeline on how long we've been in service. I think I've been in 3 or 4 years longer than you, but you know, it seems like it was very much similar the way it's been for me in the Marines, but all of a sudden I would say the past 3 to 4 years, there's been kind of a surge of not necessarily competition shooting, but just more of a wanting to learn and adopt principles that we as competition shooters understand and know, but now it's kind of being expressed across the entire service, DoD, if you want to call it.
No, I think it's excellent, Matt. Like, really, I honestly look at it and I think it's just me, right? Like I can't see all the algorithms, but I think that social media and I think that where we're at like in the world as far as like the United States and like how everything's so kind of out there now is so exposed that it's challenging these operational units to be better, right? Like where before you couldn't see what the other person was doing. You couldn't see that even with the competition, unless you bought like the magazine, you know, like the USPSA magazine or SWAT magazine or way back in the day, unless you saw that and you kind of read about it or you saw some early YouTube videos, it was hard to kind of equate that. Mm-hmm. But now we've gotten to a point where like everything's so exposed and like I really, you know, coming from the medical side, right? It's the same with the medical side where it's so out there. Like all this stuff is being with the Tactical Combat Casualty Care Committee. Now that it's whenever they publish something new, that's like, hey, stop doing this and do this new thing because this is the percentage of lives it will save. It's instant. It's instant out into the world. And I think that's the same way with the military and the shooting community is like, hey, there's all these other ways to train your people to be very, very good at their whatever fire, even if it's a saw, if it's 240, if it's a goose, if it's a sniper platform, a pistol, like there's all these other things that are challenging the special operations community to be better. because of the social media aspect of it, if that makes sense. Like I really truly think that is where the big push has come from over the last few years.
No, I'd agree. And I think kind of challenging the old mindset, because let's be real, we've been in a war for, quote unquote, 20 years or so. And there's a lot of people, a lot of senior guys, guys my age that are like, oh, I have the only marksmanship badge. I need my combat action ribbon, this and that. It's like, okay, so you got shot at, but did you actually hit what you were shooting at? And so we've really challenged people to, this is how you become more lethal. This is how you become deadlier. This is how you hit your target and know that you're properly engaging. It's not as easy as what you're making it out to be. But these skills right here are going to challenge you to be the best version of yourself.
Absolutely. And like, it's funny. So, I know, Matt Martini, but Matt Martini and I actually went to RIP together. We're great friends. And I was kind of thinking back to early GWAT. And, here's the other thing, right? They give you a rifle. They give you an optic, and they're like, put this optic on this rifle, and you're going to zero it exactly at this thing. And if you aim here, you're going to hit 300 meters, right? It's always 300. It's 300 meters, kind of like the standard. And you go, yeah, Roger's that. Yeah, Roger, sir. Like that you're telling me whatever you're telling me is the truth. And like, now you and I know, and Frank knows, like, when you actually get into the shooting community and the ballistics and everything, and like you realize like that's not truly like what it is, and they tell you like, oh yeah, you're 14.5 inch standard defense upper, and you're shooting green tip, and you put this EOTech 3 power, you aim here and you can hit him, and like you're like, yeah, Roger that. But that's 99% of like everybody believes that until you actually like start looking at it like realistically, and you're like, oh, that's not truly how it is. And you're right. Like there were times where we just accepted that like we were just this amazing, powerful force that could like, go out and yeah, hey, I can see that dude running at 300 meters and I can shoot him. And you're like, that's not realistic, right? We look at the Zoo City match. Mm-hmm. We shot out to 560. We had plenty of 300s. We had winds that were easily right to left,
30 to 40 miles. Yeah.
And you're like, are you really telling me that like I can take my EOTech or my Elcan or my oh my God, some of the other like optics, aim point, yeah, and like I can like give me a break, man. Like you have to be really proficient at this platform, and so I was actually kind of laughing about it with Matt. Is like, they preach that you can do this sort of thing, but you really can't. I mean, you have to have practice and hours behind a firearm to do this sort of thing. So it's kind of funny to see it, and you're like, no, we can't do that. I can't kill a man running it, I can't kill a man running it 300 meters down a road with a 5.56 a green tip with a EOTech. Like it's not going to happen. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that come up in our lethality study that the Marine Corps did. One of the hardest things we do is engaging moving targets. It's one of the things that most people are deficient at and that we're trying to correct.
Mm-hmm. It's a concerted addition to our new rifle qual. Like there's moving targets at the 100 and 200 yard line, which I think is a good.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's part of the new Marine Corps?
It is.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, and you're shooting from a barricade too. So they give you a little bit of prep time, but you see the target come up and it's either going to move left or right, and you got to get 2 shots on it.
Well, that's cool, man. That's like, it just shows you how far we've come.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're on point in terms of saying, right, the globalization of information and how readily available information is definitely driven a lot of those marksmanship advancements. You clearly see the benefits of practical shooting when it comes to applying them to the modern day warfighter. So I'd like to throw a bit of a scenario at you. Say, for example, you have like a day with a bunch of soldiers. What are some lessons that you've learned from practical shooting that you would like to teach them in that day, given the chance?
Oh, good question. I think the number one thing is body position. I mean, no matter if you're standing, you're sitting, you're kneeling, pistol or rifle, I think body position is like the number one thing. And it's, when I say that, it's body position and trigger control, right? And like, if you can't, I have a 10-year-old and right now he only shoots PCC. And he shoots PCC. We've done some USPSA. We've done some falling steel. We've done some 2-gun stuff where he shoots only PCC. But everything I work on him is body position and trigger control. And it's amazing to see how far he's done. And, I think with any young soldier, you teach them in safety. I think safety is a part of that. But if you teach them how to properly stand or hold a firearm, and like look at the target, right? That like the basic 5 fundamentals, and engage with that trigger control, especially with pistol. I think that's really that. I mean, that's just the fundamentals. And then you can get into all, it's all the other stuff, the moving and shooting, and you start getting into the JJ Rakaza movements and the Joe Farewells and all stuff. But really when it comes down to is like being able to like, even look at the military, look at how many movies or even how many like true documentaries or videos you see. Every time a Marine or a soldier picks up a rifle, what do? They grab the rifle by the magazine, because that is what was taught to them from the person that was taught to them. There's a lot of like really bad fundamentals. So like to really break down your question, it's like, if I'm going to teach anybody anything, I'm just going to teach them the fundamentals, because we teach the fundamentals in the military improperly.
Yeah, I agree. And I think something else that sticks out to me, body positioning and all that, you never realize how many non-athletes end up joining the military until you start doing stuff like this. You see guys get pushed back by 5.56 rifles. You see people with their feet too close together. And these are things that, like, if you've played sports and you've been a point defender, you understand that your center of gravity needs to be low, and that you need that kind of flexibility to move left and right, your lateral.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But trying to teach that to a grown man or woman who's never done that before in their life is actually, it's honestly pretty challenging. While we're on the subject of getting like service members into shooting, I've always encountered, like with very few exceptions, a lot of reluctance to get into competitive shooting. What has your experience been in terms of like getting active duty guys into shooting, and how do you overcome that reluctance if you find it?
Oh man, that's an excellent question. This is actually, I talk about all the time. It's a humility. So, in the military, we have this, like, the guy that's like the most badass, like physically fit. Sorry, hold on real quick. I just gotta plug that. We have these guys that are like, the most badass, physically fit dudes, or they're the most talented or whatever. But especially in the shooting world, the shooting outside of like the quote unquote tactical shooting, the military shooting, it's never emphasized, right? And so what I think the issue is humility, and I see it all the time. And I see guys that are dudes that have been even before me, like in an SMU, that have been there for 10 years before me. Like, hey man, come out and shoot this thing. And they're like, no, bro. I'd rather, I just want to put on my body armor and I just want to like shoot some steel at 50 yards. And you're like, all right. Like, but does that make you more accurate? Does it make you a better marksman? And they're like, well, that's just what I do. And you're like, okay. And they're kind of set in their ways. And I even see it with some of the, a lot of these units hold internal competitions. Well, I could literally break down, I can't get into it too much, but I can break down over the last 10 years, every single person that has won this competition, this high competition for this unit over the last 10 years is all competitive shooters. There's not one non-competitive shooter that's won this. And, when it comes to the getting new guys in, it's a humility thing. And like, they all think that like, they did, and I'm just going to name a bunch of stuff, right? So they did RASP, they did SFAS, they did the PJU, they did, whatever program they did where they told them, you're the most badass. And no, you shot this out, this algorithm, this thing, and you're the best. And they're like, oh yeah, I am. And then you're like, hey, come down to this local competition, whatever. And they're like, nah, man, I'm good. They just don't want to be embarrassed by civilian or, whatever shooters. And it's kind of sad because I see it, especially in the Fort Bragg area where it's the highest concentration of conventional and special operations in the military. And like, you don't get that many actual like true special operations guys coming out. It's because in all honesty, they're embarrassed. They don't want to get embarrassed or humbled by, getting outshot by a 16-year-old kid.
I agree with you. So I think that phenomenon is very much like big fish in a small pond. And I think having developed myself as a shooter, there's definitely times at which like Matt, after I got gold medal at McEast, I was feeling really good about myself. And then I got my shit pushed in at championships. So there's always like, you climb the top of a mountain and then you go and find the next mountain to go climb. I think that's an important thing for like personal growth. As a human being, as a shooter, as a service member, to not get complacent and constantly go out there and seek the next competitive venue, heat, whatever, to push yourself to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We can never like, if you get stuck in that like very small niche thing that you're like okay at, and you never want to get better, like then you're never going to get better as a shooter. But it's like, what's the point? If you're only for 30 years, you're only going to shoot production and USPSA, what's the point? Why not try something different? But like, that's your thing. And like, you're afraid to go outside of that bubble.
So, all right. We've kind of hit on this question before already a bit, but I still want to kind of pick your brain some. So you came up in USASOC and you've attended advanced shooting packages. What is the difference between the in-house packages that are taught, not stuff that you've done with the unit specifically, but actual in-house packages, and then whenever you've had competitors come in and train you guys, what benefit has there been to receive training from guys who haven't even seen or experienced combat?
So, I would say a lot of the in-house stuff lately has been very competitive based, very like accuracy based, very, it even works on like your draw times, your first round times, everything's off a timer, which is pretty incredible in the military realm. What's been awesome is, in my time, I've got to work in the USAC realm. I've worked with JJ, I've worked with Rob Latham, Benny, I've worked with Keith Garcia, I've worked with
AMU
Greg
guys.
Greg Jordan. Oh man, I love me AMU guys. but you're working with people that are the best at what they do. And what's cool is nobody's ever going to come in and talk to you about tactics, right? Nobody can ever understand the tactics unless you were in it, right? Like, unless you were in it for the, however many years, 20 years of the GWAT, unless you were in it, you can't talk tactics. But what you can talk about is you can't talk about the marksmanship and the movement and the accuracy. And that's just been pretty incredible about bringing in outside help. And I think across the military, that's a very valuable thing is when you bring out somebody outside of the military, they have a different perspective. They're not trying to talk to you about, carrying, a 35-pound plate carrier between your ammo, your frags, your med kit, whatever you're carrying on your back, if you're carrying a 240, if you're carrying a saw, they just want to make you a better shooter. And it all collates, right? And like, it's a niche, because you have to take it with a grain of salt, right? You have to say, okay, I'm bringing in this certain person and they're teaching me this certain thing. How can I apply it to what I would go do in combat? And combat, relates to like night vision and body armor and this different optics and lasers and all this other stuff. And so it's like, how can I collate that? But all those guys, man, like, I would much rather hire a Joe Farewell to come in and teach a rifle course to any Army unit out there than a dude that was in a special missions unit who never was a competitive shooter, but they were just a special mission any day of the week, because they're going to offer significantly more advice and better marksmanship than the dude that was like just a tactical shooter.
Well, they have a different perspective, and they have a language and they have the fluidity of explaining the craft that they're teaching. And, I'll kind of bring up an example of what myself and Alex King and John Glomba did last year. I want to say it was last August. We went down to recon, and James Archbell, he helped set it up, but we went down to recon. And at first, going out there, they thought we were just some range coaches at the Marine Corps training. We're just like guys from a range detail, and they didn't know what they were getting really. And so I got up in front of them. I was like, hey, this is who I am. This is what we do. We're here to learn from you as much as you are here to learn from us. We're not going to go into any kind of specific tactics. We're just here to give you a different perspective on things. So they didn't really have any understanding of what we're doing, and they never brought competitive shooters down there to really teach or train them. They're used to going to those tactical training courses per se. And so we went down there, we pulled out the timers, and we said, okay, here's a first drill. This is a first milestone. This is a standard, and we're going to demonstrate it first. We're going to show you that you're able to do it within the standard, and then you're going to go live. And so we demonstrated everything, got everything within the standard, and then put them on the spot. And by the end of the day, they were like, holy shit, these guys can shoot. And then by day 3, we brought into stages, different drills, and we demonstrated all the drills. And they never, once you show people what a timer is, they're like, holy shit, that's a great piece of gear, because now we have some measurable data we can use. And then as well as like the accuracy, can I do this in this amount of time with this accuracy standard? And like, it kind of blew their mind away. And they were like, we want to keep doing stuff like this. And so it's like a matter of keeping in touch. We went back down there a month later. We sent a group of guys down there after Memorial, and, and it's just a matter of like continuing to try and get these mobile training teams set up. That way we can keep building upon the skills that they've already learned. And it was really cool to see that progression.
Well, and that's what it should be, right? Like, we should never be settling in the military to be like, oh, we're just the military, we do our own thing. Like, it's not the only thing out there. And in the shooting, that's all we've done for years and years.
Yep. And another thing that King started doing is he would go down to these mobile training teams, and he would kind of show them, hey, these are the skills to practice. He would run them through a couple drills. He's like, all right, you guys break out. These are your targets. Go live and, work yourself. We'll be around to kind of touch on any things that we notice. And then but this is your time to train yourself. Nobody's going to be hovering over you. Nobody's going to be yelling at you. This is your time just to better improve yourself. And it's something that they've never experienced before. And it was just, we call it discovery learning.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah, we never really do that in the military. We don't do a whole lot of discovery learning. There's always a point, right? There's a definite point on the teep that we want to drive to. We want to make the most of this, the training opportunity. And I think, Chris, that goes back to what you were saying about just either shooting for quantity, right? Or shooting for like a whole lot of accuracy shooting. Like to change it up a bit in terms of subject. We talked before we started the interview about like tactical games. I know you do the Griffin Group Rumbles as well, and you've done pretty well in those events. How do you balance the fitness, shooting, and mental preparation for those types of events in particular?
Oh man, good question. I've done tactical games. Shout out to Jared and those guys. I love tactical games, right? I love what they're doing. It's not for me anymore. It's very fitness based, where it's more fitness than shooting, which is fine, right? So John Sherbert, we call him Sherb. John was at the tactical range complex here in North Carolina, and he recently moved to Griffin Group. Well, he has run the Battle Rattle. When he moved to Griffin Group, he didn't want to keep the Battle Rattle, so he moved to Rumble. And really what it is it's what the three of us have done for years, right? Where you put on heavy body armor, you're moving, dude, I don't care what it is, right? You're moving a 220-pound man, you're moving a Skedco off of a helo for a support by fire position, or Gustav rounds, or you're a 240 gunner who doesn't have an AG, so you're like, it's about moving heavy stuff in awkward positions, climbing whatever and shooting. But what I love that Sherb has done is Sherb has challenged the community with accuracy. Excuse me. And so the Rumble, what really turned me on to the Rumble was, it's the same, it's the tactical games environment, right? Where you're wearing a kit, and he has a couple different categories. The new heavies 20-pound kit. The next, I think the tactical is a helmet 15-pound kit, like some other stuff, but there's light. But you're not only carrying that, but like each division has like heavier stuff, but it's single person shooter, right? So it's 6-minute timeout, which 6 minutes of like a heavy tactical moving thing is pretty intense. But he actually puts accuracy with it, where you're not shooting like a piece of paper, 25 yards. Like we go out to, every time I've shot out there, we go out to 560 yards. He's challenging you. You better know your firearm. You better know your velocity, your round. What's your ballistic coefficients? Your BC, like what's your, all that stuff, right? Everything associated with like shooting, and you better be able to like pick heavy stuff up and move. And that has been the most like fun, rewarding thing to me to shoot lately is the Rumbles, because it's very competition based, where you're still shooting very fast paper, knockdown still, or you're transitioning to rifle and you're shooting long range rifle and you're shooting some paper and all that stuff. It's very competition. Like it's anything that you would see in any multi-gun match, right? But then on top of it, he's putting like a very challenging, whatever obstacle it is, whatever heavy thing or multiple heavy things, and that's what's been fun. And I've had the absolute like privilege and honor. I've won the last 3. I've won 3 in a row, and not just like 3 in my division. I've won the 3 overalls. I don't think this next time that will happen, because the way he's changed the categories, heavy, I don't think heavy division is ever going to win overall ever again. But it's been really cool to shoot that. And I like going from the 3-gun multi-gun world to just being able to like put on body armor and like shoot. And I know that was a long, and to finish answering your question, how I trained for that is like, I train very functional fitness, but I also like to train with the functional fitness. I gotta move heavy stuff. I gotta be able to pick up 150 pound sandbag, and I gotta move that 150 pound sandbag 100 to 200 meters. And then at the end of it, I got to keep my heart rate down enough that I can still engage targets without pinging, right? Without going in the black. And that's hard for some. And I saw this last time where the divisions changed, and there were dudes that literally couldn't pick up a 140 pound sandbag. And it's not trying to put down anybody, because I love everybody that comes out, but you know, there's like to me, in this tactical world, the true tactical world, like the true tactical world, not like wearing like really like tight shorts where you put like a 5.56 mag in your pocket. Like you have to actually wear like body armor, you know? I mean, you guys have shot TTG. Yeah. Like you have to be able to pick up and carry like heavy stuff. And there were dudes that literally couldn't pick up 140 pounds. And I'm like, man, that's like a typical female that we have on the special operations teams now, right? CCTs and all this other. So if you can't pick up a 140 pound sandbag, it's kind of, I'm like, oh man. So like training wise, a lot of it is just like, you know, it's a lot of the daily like training, but then it's a lot of like just times of like, you know, I'll do like 24-minute EMOMs where it's like 1 minute is just hold a 150 pound sandbag, and it's run 400 meters, and then it's, you know, an assault bike, and then it's picking up something heavy, and it's just over and over and over again, because that's kind of what the community is. That's kind of what that shooting community is, you know?
Yeah, what I appreciate about those events is you always see people come out and you see them get gut checked. So that sandbag specifically, what you're talking about, I remember my first tactical games was in 2019, and that was back when Tim Burke was still running it. And he 100. Well, so for the intermediate division, it was supposed to be a 75 pound sandbag, but somebody didn't make the swap, and your boy here was the first squad to go, and he had to pick up a 150 pound sandbag. I did it. I didn't do it gracefully. I didn't look good doing it, but I got through it. But it was a real wake up call in terms of like mechanics and knowing how to like lift heavy weight, how to stabilize it, how to move efficiently under it. And having shot tactical games for so long, and having I spectated a Griffin Group Rumble back in it was December timeframe. I thought the shooting was a lot more dynamic. You got a mixture of close paper, falling steel, you got farther steel targets, you're shooting off a car and all these other things. And part of it is that Griffin Group is just a really awesome range, and they can get away with a lot of that. But I really appreciate Sherb's willingness to be that much more creative with his stage setups. I definitely want to go back and shoot it sometime.
Oh man, I hope you do. And like, and I love the tactical games, right? Like I will support Jared. I took 5th in elite in 2019. I've only shot one, right? I took 5th in elite, and I took 5th against literally 3 of the guys had won first place before. And then me, Matt Caleb, between 3rd and 5th. Like it was not a, you know, like I have an appreciation for the tactical games, but like it's hard for me to, it's not fun for me. I don't like stopping at 25 meters and shooting a piece of paper 10 times, you know? And so I'm glad you said that, because the Sherbs is so much more dynamic. It actually like, it makes you be accurate, but then like you have to be fast and accurate and know your firearm and like all that stuff. And what I like is I hate, and you guys are in the military, right? So nobody should ever tell you how many rounds you should have. Man, if you can't hit something with 30 rounds, like, okay. But when you're telling like each competitor, like you can only have 5 rounds here, 5 rounds here, 5 rounds here. And if you have a malfunction, it's like, to me, it's not realistic, and it's not breaking it into the actual like tactical shooting community. And so what's cool with Sherb and how he runs it is like, it's like, hey man, you carry whatever you want to carry. You have to hit all these targets. And so if that means you're going to carry 90 rounds, you're going to carry one 30-round magazine, and that's it, right? And that's what's pretty cool about that.
I do have to say, I don't think you give yourself enough credit saying that you probably will never win heavy division again. Like I remember whenever we were down at the Battle for the South, and whenever me, Sherb, Jason, Buddy, we were all just sat back there next to Buddy's camper, drinking some bourbon and whatnot. They were describing an event that Sherb designed, and like everybody else was complaining, oh, this is impossible. You can't do this in this time limit, blah, 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 blah. And Sherb's like, you know what Chris did? Chris just went at it, picked it up, and he broke the time. He's like, he proved that, the time doesn't matter. Like, who cares about the time? I'm going to beat that time. So I think that really says a testament about yourself and your mental toughness and what you're capable of doing. And, what people are capable of doing if they have the right mindset going into something. And I think that's key to it. Like, yes, you have to physically train yourself to prepare for these tough matches, but you also have to train your mind to be able to get through the hardship and through the suffering, because at the end of the day, we talk about real tactical, shooting and real tactical experiences. That's exactly what combat is. It's getting in a situation that you don't have a solution right now, but you're figuring it out as you go. And in order to survive, you have to be the better decision maker.
Dude, in anything we do, the mental agility is like the number one, right? And like, you look at these young bucks that come into the shooting world super early, and I mean, dude, the Nate Stackowitz and all those guys, I freaking love those guys, man. Mm-hmm. I love them. And one thing, and luckily, like Nate and all those guys are super like resilient, but like one thing that's like helped me is like 38 and only really been doing this since late 2016 is like, it is all about mental agility, man. It's like, and like, dude, there are dudes that are way better than me, but it's all about like, okay, that wasn't my best match. What did I mess up on? And I really, Joe Farewell said this best, man. We shot the 2020, I think it was 2020 match, Area 6 championship, right? We shot nationals together and we shot the Area 6. And dude, I had a really bad stage. And Joe and I have been friends for years. And Joe looked at me and he goes, hey man, you got 5 minutes. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, you got 5 minutes to be pissed off, mad, upset, whatever. He goes, at the end of those 5 minutes, you better be done. You better move on. You better learn from those mistakes and like come into the next stage. And I was like, wow, dude, that was like that's super challenging, right? Because like in our community, in the military community, we want to be the best, right? You got to be the best, but like the room for mistakes sometimes. Mistakes can cost you UCMJ. They can cost you your job, depending. In the shooting community, it's like, dude, you got to learn from those. And so, Joe was like, hey man, you got 5 minutes to be pissed off and then move on. And I was like, all right, man, like five minutes it is. And I've always kind of like kept that. And you know what you were saying with like what Buddy and all those guys were talking about, like, dude, a lot of that is the mental resiliency is like, it's just get through it, man. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just like get through it and suck it up. And like, that's what's really cool about the way that Sherb builds. And I'll say this, Sherb, the Rumble, the Proving Grounds, all these other things. What's cool about this new adventure of the shooting world is it's challenging people that have never been challenged before, that you gotta like have some sort of resiliency. And some people do and some people don't. But I think that's a cool thing, is seeing these people come out that were just civilians, that may be like day traders or they're nurses or whatever. And like, they're challenged to like, hey man, you got to carry this thing for 15 minutes back and forth. It's 150 pounds. Like, you know, and it's just like challenging. We're like, in our community, we got to do it because that's how we stay in this soft community, or that's how we stay, you know, at the top level. And so that's what's kind of cool with all these new tactical games, Rumble, Proving Grounds, whatever else is out there, is it's just challenging like normal humans to kind of dig deep and find that like mental capacity to like suck it up and like, you know, move for the 15 minutes or whatever and finish. So
talking about like mental resilience training, everything that you do to prepare for this stuff, what are your personal goals for this upcoming season?
Man, you know, Matt, what sucks is like still being active duty is it all depending on like what the year brings.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so it's like, what does a year bring? It is like how I focus on like what my goals are, you know, and this year I was like, this year is like super chill. I can get a lot of practice in. I know I can do very well. And I've had some very good finishes this year between the Battle for the South and some Rumbles and some other stuff. And other years I haven't, just because. So I think part of it, active duty wise, is just where you're at in your job. When I'm done active duty, it's going to be a completely different game.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some matches that you have coming up, and what out of those matches, which ones are you most excited for?
So the Tar Heel Challenge is coming up. I got to look again, job wise, if I'm going to shoot it. The Pro-Am, the new Donnie's match with the Pro-Am is super, just such a cool match. And what I love about it is, so I shot the Pro-Am back when it was over at Rock Castle back in Tennessee or whatever. And like, it was two different matches. It was the pros shot a match and the AMs shot a match. Well, what's cool that Donnie's done is Donnie has done a true, it's a pro to an AM. So like when you sign up and you should pretty much know kind of where you're at. The pro signs up and then you get to sign an AM. And what's cool is it's kind of two different matches, but they're shooting the same match. And so the pros get to shoot their match, and then the AMs shoot where the pros can help them. So we can coach, we can carry stuff for them. I can call out shots. I can do everything out there. And to me, in the shooting community, especially coming in so late in the shooting community, where like, I didn't have a lot of help. I'm the guy that's learned every mistake humanly possible. I told Joel Fairwell the other day, I was like, dude, I should do like a YouTube channel of a dude that's learned every mistake in the shooting community, like everything. The first time I installed a muzzle brake, I installed it upside down. I'll just be completely honest with you. I installed a muzzle brake upside down. Like I didn't know anything, right? And so like, what's cool about the Pro-Am is it lets you take an amateur shooter and it lets you just pour your knowledge out onto them, which is just absolutely just incredible. You know, we have a Rumble coming up in June, and then this year there's so many things on the East Coast. I really actually didn't look at anything farther past. I've shot the High Desert and the Surefire before. This year, really, we've kind of shot a bunch. The Duskin is really the number one thing I'm looking forward to, shooting the Duskin, and then Pro-Am, and then the Rumble in June is kind of all I'm signed up for.
So you kind of mentioned the Duskin match. So what is that match? What does it represent? And what does that match mean to you? And, you know, we've seen a large influx over the past few years of veteran/memorial matches, charity matches. And to me, this is the original match that holds a purpose. And how does this one compare to all the others?
Oh, man, great question. it definitely, I mean, for me, it was the original, right? And what's cool about it is it's held on Fort Bragg. It's not held anywhere else. It's held on Fort Bragg. It's held by group. It's held by the Special Forces Group Command, and especially SWIC and third group. And so, it's kind of been a different range master every year and all this stuff. And they did 2016, 17, 18, and then they haven't done one until this year. But what's cool about it more much is it's focused on like, one just incredible dude, just chief warrant officer Mike Duskin, and just him in the special forces community, because he was a competitive shooter and he was just kind of a fitness guy. And it's nothing more than that, right? But it's owned by the Special Forces Group, and it's actually at range 65. So what's cool is you get to actually use a shoot house. You get to actually use things that, like, now this is me talking from if I was talking from a non-military side, if you're a civilian, you get to go shoot at a Special Forces compound. You get to shoot all this stuff where there's not as many rules. And so that's what's unique about the whole thing is, they have multiple shoot houses. So you actually get to shoot like true shoot houses. You get to shoot like true, like vehicles that it doesn't matter if you shoot them or not. They've had fast ropes. The last one I shot, they had an MRAP where you like climbed out of the back of an MRAP up onto the second story and you shot through a shoot house. And so, the cool thing about the Duskin is it's kind of like breaking outside of the norm of like the shooting community. And it's really only focused on like the SF community, and it's very invite friendly, where they're inviting, certain people from the community. But what's special to me is that was where I got my start. I just, some guys were like, "Hey, we're going to go shoot this. You can use my shotgun." And that's what's cool is it's anybody from like third group can go shoot this thing at any time, or not any time. Sorry, at any during that whole time. And there's dudes out there that are like, "Hey, use my shotgun, use my pistol." And so it's kind of like getting guys into the community. And that was, for me, that was kind of like my first, where I was like, "Oh man, like this is, what a cool community to be a part of. What a cool like part of like the shooting world." And like, I was a ranger. These guys are a bunch of SF guys. We're all under USASOC together, but like we all have like this cool camaraderie, and it was just special. And the fact that it's coming back now, and that JK is running it, like, I mean, JK is just, dude, he's going to destroy it. Like he's going to kick it out of the park, man. And it's going to be such a cool event. And there's going to be things that you can't do at any other match. So that's what's special about the Duskin. Plus it has the best t-shirts you can get. So
I love the one where you have the dude punching the unicorn.
Punching the unicorn, man. Punching the unicorn. They're the best shirts.
How many people do you think the Duskin match has actually brought into the 3-gun community?
And just in the world I live around, I mean, over time, probably 50 plus people into the community, like easy. Like I can name like at least 50 dudes that like their first match or their kind of first thing was the Duskin. So it's kind of sad that it hasn't gone on for the last 2 years, but the fact that it's coming back is pretty awesome.
No, you know what? That's one match I am extremely excited about. I'm really looking forward to being down there with you guys. And like, to me, it's like, I don't care about performance right now. I care about what can I offer the guys on my squad. If they've never done this before, one thing I really get satisfaction out of, it's being down there with a group of people, like-minded people, and I can just sit back and be like, "Hey, I would try this, or I'd try this. Hey, you did this really well." And it's just helping people who've never done it before. I was at a match this week, and a 2-gun match that the shooting team put on. And I didn't shoot it. I was just out there, and I was working with some of the summer shooters, and it was like, hey, this is how I would attack this position. This is how I would engage these targets. This is what I would do. And last thing, shoot within your means. And like one of the guys specifically I'm talking about, his first stage, he shot outside of his means. He got like three mics on that stage, and it was just like, oh, he's like, yep, shoot within my means. And then after that, it's like he was on fire, and he just killed it. And that's what I'm looking forward to whenever I go down there and am a part of this. And it's kind of an honor being able to get invited and go down there. So I really appreciate what the invite JK put forward for me.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing, man. It's kind of like, it's not everybody can shoot it, right? Like you kind of have to earn it in the sense of the community, and and so that's what's cool about it. And you said it right. So I've never RO'd a major match, ever. Never RO'd a major match. I've told people I would, and they had other ROs, but I told JK, I was like, dude, I want to RO this match. And so I'm actually going to RO the Duskin. And I'm so looking forward to it, dude. I'm going to pour, because there's no real rules, right? Like there's not you can't coach. I'm going to coach the hell out of some of these guys. Hey man, you're one target to the left. I'm going to absolutely, because it's just so much fun. And you don't get to ever shoot like that. And it's just a different community, because you're getting what Frank asked earlier is, you're getting dudes that never shot competition shooting before. And so now this is their first experience. So we better make it a good one, Yep.
No, it's going to be a good time. And honestly, I got to say thank you. I'm letting me crash at your place and hang out with you.
Yeah, dude.
It's going to be a blast. I can't wait.
It's you, me, and Farewell, bro. Farewell's staying here too. Dude.
Oh, hell yeah. I'll bring the bourbon.
It's gonna be awesome.
So, I mentioned at the beginning of this, your sponsors, but, I want you to kind of talk because, I see on the forums and 3-gun talk and even 3-gun memes, oh, how do I get a sponsor? I want to be a sponsored shooter. And you see a lot of new shooters who go through this phase, like, oh, I want to get a shirt. I want to represent these companies. What kind of words of advice would you give them? How did you get your sponsors, and what would you recommend to them?
Oh man. I'm probably going to blow some minds. So first of all, in my opinion, there's no such thing as a sponsorship anymore, unless you're a JJ or cousin. I truly, unless you're a JJ and JJ's a friend, or a Jessica Hook, or even a Joe, the sponsorship is gone. To me, sponsorship is they're paying you to shoot. And I don't include product with that. There's a difference between you're an ambassador to hey, here's this
here's a free gun.
Here's a free gun to we're going to pay you to shoot, right? Nobody is ever going to question a JJ Racaza to being a freaking sponsor shooter, right? He is the best pistol shooter in the world, or Shane or any of those guys. Even the AMU guys, when they get out, right? Look at Daniel Orr with Sick. So I'll be completely honest, man. I'm honest with the community. So dude, my uncle's Benny Cooley, right? Benny is he's the old man legacy 3-gun guy, right? He has all these contacts. So when I started shooting and started being pretty good, Benny kind of pulled some strings for me. And Benny was, he kind of started reaching out to some people and hey, you guys should really look at this kid or whatever. And so, it's between Christensen Arms and Safariland and some other stuff, yeah. But what I took that is dude, I'm not going to be that guy that's hey, give me free shit. I'm just going to be that guy that gives me free shit. I'm going to work my ass off. And
it's a second job.
Dude, it's a lot of work, man. And I'm not, I will 100%, I'm not a sponsor shooter. I am a brand ambassador for some great companies. Christensen Arms being you could not ask to be part of a better company. This family is such an incredible family. Like, it has nothing to do with like their product. It has to do with the fact how much they sponsor, or not sponsor, but they support the military, they support first responders and the community. And like what that was what was cool, and why they've kept me on for so long is like, it's not a sponsorship, it's an ambassadorship. And like, they have truly just been so graceful with me as far as like being a shooter. And at the same time, I've tried to return that gracefulness, right? Like, I've tried to be the best I can. I've tried to, do the best I could in any competition and win stuff and be a part of that. But the same with Safariland too, man. And then, dude, Chad with Priority One holsters, like, Chad is just the coolest dude you could ever meet. And the fact that he's like, he's a pretty local guy. But like, he's just been like, dude, like, just shoot my stuff. And that's what's cool. But with sponsorships, I found, I was the dude that wore the jersey at first. I bought the jersey, I put everything on it. I'm like, dude, that's such a joke. Everybody, I'm just going to say, everybody you see, unless they're like the dudes I named, like, nobody's actually getting like true, like, these benefits. They're all brand ambassadors, and like, they could just wear a t-shirt that has, every day
the company's logo.
They can wear the company's logo. You don't have to buy a jersey that has 100 different logos on it, like, like the Jerry Micklicks and even the Keith Garcias, who, like, Keith's a great friend of mine. But yeah, I mean, those dudes, it's just like, it's not a thing anymore.
Well, I think a perfect example is a couple of years ago, I think a year or two ago, James Gill, we all know who he's sponsored by, but it's like he went out to a match, wearing an American flag, what's it called, sleeveless shirt, and just a Budweiser shirt, something along those lines, just wearing whatever he wanted to wear, being comfortable. And to him, it's about how he represents the product, not how much real estate he takes up on his shirt. And that's what it kind of came down to for him.
Yeah, I mean, if you can go take, okay, so it's Christian Arms, for example, right? If I can go to the Battle for the South and I can win stage 5 for TAC Optics, I can have I won that stage, which is the SWAT van stage with the Christensen Arms rifle, boom, 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 shoot. I can show that back to the brand, and I can say, dude, like, it's all their rifle, right? Their barrel, their rifle, their muzzle brake, it's all that rifle. And you say, look, like, your rifle performed. That does more for it than like putting 10 different, logos on your shirt. Everybody has it. I mean, shit, man. There's organizations out there now where you can apply to be an ambassador and get their logo in their shirt. And it's like, I mean, dude, the first time I saw that, I was at a local match, some new local match, which I've never shot again. And some dude, like, AD'd like right in the ground, right by me, wearing this jersey. And I was like, come on, man, like, you're just giving people this false hope. But there's a difference between sponsorship and ambassadorship. And like, I'll just say I've been very blessed to be a part of, some companies that really have absolutely supported me and like are always there for me. And, I don't ever have to like pursue. They're always, they love that I shoot for them. And especially Christensen Arms, they're so good to the military community, man. Like, the Christensen family is just, dude, they're just blessing on top of blessing for the military community. And so to me, it's not even like I just feel honored that I can shoot for a company that represents that sort of like legacy, you know?
Mm-hmm. No,
I
no,
think you
appreciate
calling it. Oh, sorry, Matt.
No, you go.
Um, I think you calling it a brand ambassador is operative. It makes more sense. Companies are looking for someone to represent their brand at matches that isn't necessarily going to isn't going to portray them in a bad light. So, would you agree that really a lot of what they're looking for is character rather than like shooting ability, and that really like it's the personalities that go out there deliberately trying to find sponsorships that kind of turn these companies off?
Well, 100%. Like there are some amazing shooters out there, but there's some amazing shooters out there that are guys that I don't want to be around and the community doesn't want to be around. And like companies don't want that. And some do. We all know that. But like what they want is they want people that are just great ambassadors. They're loved by the community. They want to pour back into the community. They want to, talk about that company and that's where I've seen so many. So, I mean, if you look at sometimes like these major events, some of the biggest, I guess, in the 3-gun community, the biggest 3-gun shooters, like sometimes the people that are like the biggest sponsored are not the guys that are taking first, second, or the gals that are taking first, second, third place. They're farther back, but they're just really good ambassadors for their product. And like companies, I think, would much rather have that than like the person that is the best shooter, but just terrible ambassadors for them.
And I actually have a follow-up to that, but it's actually for Matt. Being in charge of the shooting team for so long, have you seen a lot of Marines that desperately wanted to get on the shooting team who weren't necessarily good character fits? And would you say there's correlation between shooters trying to get sponsorships and Marines trying to get on the team?
So I would absolutely say that is 100% true. And so whenever you go through the Marine Corps marksmanship competitions, when I was in charge of the team, I would kind of watch people and see, who has good character, who has good shooting ability. And then they come up to championships and I would kind of be, up in a tower. I'd be far away enough to kind of see what's going on, but, still close enough to stop any shenanigans from happening per se. And if they didn't have good character, I didn't want them. I didn't care what their abilities were. They could be the number one guy, but if they couldn't represent their unit and if I couldn't trust them to travel the United States and represent not just the team, but the entirety of the Marine Corps, I don't want them because I don't want people I can't trust, on the shooting team. I need people of good character and that have the ability to act like adults in public. And I've turned people away. I've turned lots of people away. And I had a guy, he was a great shooter. He was on the summer season. And for 2 years after that, he kept trying to come back to the team. And it was like, dude, no, leave me alone. What's done is done. Like, I can't bring you back. Like, I don't have the confidence that you can conduct yourself as an adult. So I think it is all about the character that you possess as a person and not just your ability to shoot.
Yeah, I felt like you probably had some interesting experiences there because the Marine Corps is a brand.
Yes.
And being on the team is a highly desirable like posting for a lot of people. And I saw that myself. So what I always tell my Marines is like, just like be good to other people, shoot your best match, keep a cool head, help reset and all that. But don't be someone you're not because they're going to see that sooner or later, whether it's at division, at championships, or when they spend a full 3 months with you during the summer season. Your real personality is going to come to the top.
Oh, I actually have an example. I had this one guy. We boarded him to bring him onto the summer team. And that was for the Bullseye pistol team. And then we get into the action stages. part of the championships, and I'm just sat back kind of watching. I'm sitting down on some stairs watching, and I see him get into an argument with one of my Marines who is an RO. And then I see him get into another argument another day with another RO. And I'm just kind of sat back watching. And so I called my OIC over. I was like, hey, this guy right here, he's not coming. He's like, what do you do? And I explained it to him. He's like, yep, I trust your judgment. We're not bringing him. And like, this is a guy who had a spot for the summer, and he just lost it based off of how he acted. So it's all about how you carry yourself and how you represent yourself.
Dude, that's like wholeheartedly in the community, right? Like, dude, there are dudes like in organizations that people don't want to be around, man. Like, I mean, there are organizations that ROs don't want to RO, and like people don't want to be around, and they're like, whoa, my mind's blown. Like, why is this? It's like, bro, like you literally treat people like crap, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to throw it out there. I mean, Jason and Chris and Buddy and those guys, they're great friends, but I want to look at it objectively. Those three guys treat their ROs and their staff better than anybody else in the community.
Absolutely.
You will never see anybody else in the community treat dudes better than those three. And I got to throw Sherman from Griffin Group, but like, you'll never see that, man. And like, dudes want to come back because they want to work for them. Mm-hmm. And it's the same, like you guys are talking about the shooting community. And it's like, dude, in these days between USPSA and, I could nationals and all that stuff, like, bro, if you're not treating people with the like respect, or you're not treating them like they are actually like adults, and you're asking somebody to, one, give up the fact that like maybe they could place high, and now they got to shoot a different match to get a different prize table, and sometimes not even a different prize table, like, and maybe all this other stuff. You're asking them to do that, and then you're not willing to like treat them with respect, is mind blowing to me, man. Mm-hmm. And the Zoo City guys have done it right. And it's the same with like you're talking about like the shooting community, like ambassadors, man. Like, dude, if you can't get over yourself, all right, here's what I'm not even gonna, there's no names, but there are some people that live out west that they post videos all the time. And these, dude, they're awful. Like they're not like that good of shooters, but they have all these sponsorships. And it's actually kind of the way the tactical game's gone a little bit, where all these companies are given sponsorships because that's where the money's at. These people are like awful. And they're not good ambassadors for like the program or for the company, but they're just throwing the stuff out. And I'm like, all right, man, like at some point that's going to come to a head where you're not getting any, I don't know, it's not coming back to
there's no return on investment for that company.
There's no return on investment, right? Like you're just, you're like, oh, you're a good shooter for the tactical games. Well, let me give you a pistol. But in the grand scheme of things, they're not actually a good shooter. So they're not like doing anything that's demonstrating like any good like firearm techniques and stuff. And so they're just giving us free stuff. And like, eventually it's going to come back with like, oh shit, man, it's the same with these big major matches. And if you're not having the return on investment for your ROs, if your ROs and your shooters are not happy, your match is not going to be happy.
And next year it's going to fail. If you cannot, it's going to fail, man. I mean, Jason, you're right. Zoo City, Jason, Buddy, they had a perfect model this year. And let's be real. Jason had more people wanting to come RO his match, not just because they wanted to come RO or anything like that, but because they believe in what he is doing. They believe in his character and how he conducts himself and how he treats every RO fairly. and he knows what type of RO he's going to get in return.
100%, man. If you treat those people with that respect of like, and here's what I've seen. I see a lot of matches treat their ROs like they're second class shooters. Bro, there's some ROs that are amazing shooters, man. Dude, in our community, like the Brian or the Westbrooks and the Brian, Dimmas, like those guys are great shooters. But they always volunteered, or Chris Wiseman, man.
Yeah.
That they always volunteered to RO because they understand the community. But if you're not going to treat them with any sort of respect, if you're not going to give them like, hey man, you're giving up your opportunity to place decently high just so you can RO and not give them that sort of respect, like what the crap, man. And that is hands down across the community now. Like we treat ROs with the absolute like most disrespect everywhere, and that was so cool about Zoo City is just watching like how they treated their people, man. And like they made it like they're like our ROs are an extension of ourselves, and we are going to support them no matter what they say. And if you have an issue with it, you're going to deal with us. And we want, and like their food and their all that stuff was like paid for, and it was just cool, man.
Well, I got to say, Chris, like last year, you and I shot a match, and the way you and I handled a situation is how I think everybody should. Like, and I'll be real, like I shot a stage, a target didn't go down, and the RO told me, he's like, hey, you have to shoot it until it falls. I was like, well, dude, how many times do you want me to hit it? I'm losing time at this point. He was like, well, just shoot. I was like, no, I've already lost enough time. I want to reshoot. He's like, well, we can't give you a reshoot. I was like, all right, man, I get what you're saying, but this, honestly, I don't know what your experience is. And we treated him with the utmost respect. And you came in there and you were like, hey, and that's me as being an RO, knowing how things run. I want to give them the same type of respect that I would expect from myself. When people start yelling at their RO, and I've been in situations where people are like, no, that's bullshit. I hit that target, blah, blah, blah. I was like, sir, I'm telling you right now, you didn't hit. As an RO, you don't like making calls, because making those calls, like it hurts because you're wanting to see somebody do their best. And, that's one thing I love about, the Zoo City matches and the Donnie Flow matches. They, he backs up their ROs. And people know whenever they're coming to those matches, they're getting the best ROs that are out there.
Well, and absolutely, man. That's what makes a true match, right? Like what you and I talked, like you said, like we shot a match this year that was like, it's one of those, like, you have like really inconsistency, but the biggest thing is just support your ROs, support the people that are working for you, and they're
give
working,
them the knowledge.
Weekend, man.
Arm them with the knowledge of knowing how to make the right call, have a game plan, talk to them.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I think in the East Coast, these next couple of years, we got some between Tar Heel, the Battle for the South, Pro-Am, and the Benning match. Dude, we got some outstanding matches for the South these next couple of years, And
it's kind of a resurgence for the North Carolina crowd. We haven't seen these many matches, I would say, since 2016, 2017 timeframe, like when you were first coming in. Like, yeah, we're getting back to that level where North Carolina, South Carolina is starting to become the new hot spot for major 3-gun matches.
Yeah, dude, I agree, man. So I'm just gonna throw, because we got Frank on here and he's a USPSA guy and we talked about carry optics. I got to throw it out to you guys. Carry optics division and 3-gun, should it take over practical, or should it be its own 3-gun division?
I would say own 3-gun division.
That
That's
sounds
I
about right. I haven't shot 3-gun in so long, but yeah, anything that avoids people having to like sunset equipment and buy other equipment is probably the best.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I think what's cool is like you see, especially on the West Coast and like Tim Rampart and those guys is like those guys are awesome. I love the West Coast guys, but they're doing a big push right now for like carry optics, and they want to actually make carry optics take over tack optics. And I'm like, okay, like you want to, that's fine if you want to have the argument, but I truly think like you just make a different division. I think irons should always be a thing, right? Just like limited, just like production, like you should always have irons because irons are irons. But if you want to, so Zoo City did this year, they did tack optics, they did carry optics, and they did open. And they were very, very close. I mean, tack optics the most, but between open and carry optics, it was split down the middle. So I think that's kind of the way of the future. Instead of like reinventing the wheel, I think it added a carry optics division.
I think having that carry optics division is going to be the new fastest growing division. I would say like last year, prior to this carry optics division, open was the fastest growing division. You have the dissident arms shotguns. Like things, these guns are becoming more accessible. It's not, using, tube mags anymore for open shotguns. It's not having to find a SA-12 or something like that. It's like dissident arms is a one-stop shop for an open shotgun, and everybody's going out and getting one. But now people are like, oh, I can shoot tac ops, but with the dot carry optics division, and it's a limited pistol essentially. Oh hell yeah, I'm all in. They're not having to spend an arm and a leg. Let's be real, it's poor man's open. It's a way of calling it.
Yeah, it is. Yep, for sure.
And I think it's going to be challenging tac ops to change. I don't want to see it go away. I like shooting tac ops, but realistically, I think there's going to be an upward trend. But
yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting to see what it does.
But I think our listeners are probably wondering, are these guys ever going to shut up? So before we sign off, Chris, is there any last words of wisdom you would like to leave everybody with?
Oh man. Yeah, quickly. I gotta say it, man. I'm the big proponent. I'm the guy that's like ever mistake. Like if you're gonna be in the competition shooting world, you gotta find somebody that is better than you and you gotta ask questions. Like I said, I'm the guy that installed a muzzle brake upside down. I had no idea. I literally had no idea. No idea. You got to be the guy that asks the question of like, do I need to get a muzzle velocity? Should I know my ballistic coefficient? Should I, do I need to actually like program and street lock my distances? Do I need, like all I'm going to say is if you're in the shooting world outside of the military or even in the military, like don't be afraid to ask questions and challenge yourself to like be better. I have some people on speed dial that I hit up all the time that are some world-class athletes, some world-class shooters that, like the Joe Farewells and stuff that I literally ask the dumbest questions to, but they are willing to give me advice. So just be willing to be humble and pursue and like ask and like, you should always surround yourself with people, especially in the shooting community, that are willing to make you better and that are totally fine with giving you advice. And if you can't find those people, find somebody else. But that is it, man. Like, dude, the shooting community can be like as finicky or as like friendly as you want it. And so like find those people that will help you be better. So like, like Matt, like these Marines that are just the best.
Yeah. Most people tell me I look like an asshole and I'm always angry, but I'm not. I'm a nice guy. And that's the thing, I'll add this to what you have to say. You say just go up to people and ask questions. There's a time and place to ask questions. If the guy's about to go up and shoot his stage, it's probably not the right time. He's probably in the zone and everything, and he's not being disrespectful to you. He's just trying to focus on his plan. But everybody I've met in the 3-gun community is one of the nicest individuals that is just wanting to give you the shirt off your back to make sure you're ready. They'll give you the gun out of their hands to make sure you're set up for success. And that's the community I know, and that's a community I grew up in. So don't be afraid to ask, because you're just doing yourself an injustice.
Yep. Just ask, man. And sometimes you're going to meet that asshole, and sometimes you're going to meet that dude that's like going to, the Jason Bennett's that are literally going to give you the guns to shoot, yeah, it's pretty incredible, man.
But hey, Chris, I appreciate you coming on here. Everybody, I hope you really enjoyed this episode. Let us know what you think. Leave us a 5-star review if you think we deemed that level of rating. But I appreciate y'all listening. I hope you learned something. And until next time, have a good one.